and life, and we're back in the middle of this coronavirus, trying to find some really fun and interesting things to take your mind off of all your problems. I hope by now everybody has toilet paper, and some of your other problems are being solved, and children, teenagers, you're out getting your homework done. As Mary Gormley said, superintendent of schools, this is not a vacation. This is a time for you to really get in there and do some work. Okay, but we're going to take a little, there are art classes in school too, so we're going to do some art. Now, on the last episode, last week, I found a crocus out of my yard, and I found one more today. This is the last crocus I believe I'm going to see this season. And I showed you how to do the drawing of crocus with a pencil and crayons, just simple crayons. And I hope you can see, but by pressing down very hard with the crayons and laying one color over the top of the other, that you can get a very vivid image with crayons. Now, I also started a watercolor, and I did this as part of the demonstration, and this is the watercolor that I did this past week. It's not a great watercolor, but I was just trying to get some ideas down about how watercolor would look. You'll get a good view of the watercolor there?
Yes.
All right, great. Now, let's go through the process by which you can make a watercolor. That's going to be the problem for today. Here's our piece of paper. It's Arches paper, a very good quality and expensive. If you're going to do a watercolor, you really need to have good paper. Good paper, good paints, good brushes. Watercolor is not a forgiving media. It's one where you really need to have your proper supplies. Last episode, we spent some time analyzing a crocus, and the crocus we found has 3 outside petals, 3 inside petals, and inside the little fertilizing part is a little bit fuzzy, and it also is divided into 6 parts. So instead of working from this adorable little crocus, we're going to concentrate a little bit more on this photograph that I found. And you will recall last week we talked about the fact that the crocus petals are spoon-shaped. And sometimes you see the spoon shape head on, and sometimes you see the spoon shape this way. So that makes a difference, this or that. Now, I'm going to try to draw upside down, and I think I can do it. We're going to take this crocus first, and because I really want to get into the watercolor, I am not going to spend too much time explaining what I'm doing here. I'm keeping my eye on the photograph and drawing the shapes as I see them. I don't have to worry excessively about being terribly accurate. You have to remember that the only thing people are going to see is this. They're not going to see this. So what you have on your sheet of paper is really what is most important. And then there's this white sheath that's so characteristic of crocuses. All right, now there's a little bit of yellow showing in there. Now let's take on this one. We start with a forward petal first, the one that's closest to you. Then you do the ones on the side, which are foreshortened. And then we're going to do this one over here. We're coming around a big curving shape there. Here's another curving shape here. There's one over here. And then lastly, in back, there's another big shape there. Now we take on the third. This one's at an angle. And this one also comes in here. There's a sheath that comes in here. Now we're going to fan out 1, 2, 3. And we're going to come up this way, very dramatic. We're going to take this petal here. This is the forward one. See the spoon? There's the spoon shape right there. So we're going to draw that spoon shape. All right, there's that spoon shape. Now the next two coming up here. All right, and then this one coming over here. Now the outside one, a big, we're going to really exaggerate that one. And we have one coming over in here. And I'm going to exaggerate that one as well. And then finally the one that's way in back. Now you can see that I've exaggerated these shapes. Let's add a few of the green leaf spears in here. A few more here, over here. All right. I'm not spending too much time with the drawing because I really want to show you all how to handle the watercolor. Now, if I were really doing this for professional reason, I would not draw as heavily with a pencil, but I want you to be able to see the basic drawing. So therefore, the graphite is stronger and more firmly applied than I would do if I were aiming for a final finished product. All right, now, how do we get going with these watercolors? We have a variety of brushes here, and you will notice that they're all round brushes. We're not using this brush. I discard that. These are rounds. This is a flat brush. Very easy to see the difference between rounds and flats. And these are the rounds, this is the flat. A good size for a project like this is between 8 and 10. And there'll be a number on it. This is a number 10 from the Blick Company. This is Johnson Art. This one is, I think that's probably number 10 also. This is an 8, a little smaller, and this is another 10. A good watercolor brush, round one, is going to come to a very nice point. And I think this is my favorite brush of all time, Johnson Art. I don't sell brushes anymore. I'm not even sure they're in business. Okay, now, is the watercolor showing up? You can see what's going on. I'm just checking with my videographer here, my husband, Robert.
Hello.
Hello. So we're going to start with the petal that's closest to us. And it is a purple one. Here's our crocus right there. And right at the edge here, there's going to be a highlight. In order to get a highlight, we're not going to add color at that point. We're just going to come up and leave white paper. So anytime you want to highlight, you leave white paper. All right, so we're coming up here, we're leaving white paper. One of the ways to soften that edge is to take a little bit of a towel, paper towel works best, and you kind of blot the edge a little bit, and you'll get a softer end. It'll be a little bit more natural looking as it fades into the your highlight. So here we are, blotting away, softening that edge, maybe a little more paint there, just a little bit more. This one did work out very nicely. All right, there's a rule in watercolor. Wet colors blend together. So you have to be very careful. If we're going to have each petal look distinct, this has to be dry before we paint another petal. So a good way around that is paint something else. Paint a petal that doesn't touch it. So these petals over here don't touch that one. And therefore, we can come in here and paint this part of the petal. And this is dry, so I'm okay over there. Come in here, move around. All right, let's go over here. You notice I'm painting the outside part of each one of these petals, the outside. Just think of the outside of the spoon. So, and let's paint this one. All right, so here we go. Okay, so we're beginning to get some structure there. Now I'm going to aim for this next because they don't touch the parts I've just finished. And I'm going to change it a little bit. I'm going to go in here with a purple, and I'm going to add just a tiny bit of one of the blues, just to give it a slightly different look. And you see how we do see sort of a bluish cast. I'm also going to leave a little white paper, and we are curving the brush with the shape that we're trying to paint. So the brush, again, just like with crayons, you're not filling in, you're not just, making a fill, you're actually trying to interpret the shape that you are painting. If it's curved, your brush is curving. Curve around here, all right? And I kind of like that pale blue in there. Now, meanwhile, this is dried and that's dried. Well, no, that one's still wet. I can see it's wet, but this is dry. So for the interior, we're going to go more blue and more purple. And you have to make sure that's dry. And yes, indeed, it is dry. So the interior, blue is a shadow color. That's why nighttime things look bluer. So we're going to make this one blue. That's why we can have the interior of these crocus blue, and it really helps in watercolor to leave a little bit of white paper every once in a while. It makes it more lively. That's one of the advantages of watercolor, is that you can have, we overlapped a little bit there, doesn't matter. I'm not going to worry about that too much. Okay, let's come along here. Now let's get more blue over here. Okay, too blue. I think we should have more purple in there. I got too blue. Okay, and you notice I had blue, and I could, as long as it's wet, I could dip back into the purple and add blue. Let me show you that again. Okay, supposing we start here. We're going to do this one. And we come in here with blue. All right, there's the blue. And you say, oh my gosh, it's not a purple crocus anymore. It's a blue crocus. Well, quick. It's still wet. Dip into your purple, and you will be able to mix that color. That's called wet on wet. Isn't that a funny term? Wet on wet. All right, let's do this one. Let's do this. All right. Let's get more blue in here. All right, we've got that. A little blue over there. Okay, I think this one got too dark. So because this one's out of line, dry your brush, go down to where there's too much paint, and it's called lifting off. And now this one looks a little dark too. All right, this is lifting off, pulling that off. Okay, wait a minute, we've got a spot here that needs to get finished. And that needs quite a bit of blue in it. All right, that comes blue. All right, so that's our first layer. I think I probably would have liked to have more of the highlight on it, other areas, but we're okay. We're just trying to demonstrate here. Okay, now we've got to get the purple part of the crocus that goes down to the shaft. That one's done. This one's done. Okay, let's put a couple of green leaves in. Here we go with a green over here. This is an olive green, sap green. This is a ruthless color, viridian, very, very, very bright color. Now, crocus leaves have a little white stripe down the middle. So I'm going to try to paint the leaves with that little white stripe down the middle. I don't know whether I can accomplish it or not, but that would be fun to hint at that. And by doing that, we're leaving just a little bit of the paper white in the middle. Let's see if we can do another one. Now we're hinting here that this leaf is going behind the crocus. So you have to kind of slow down there so that it doesn't overlap. All right, a few more leaves. And down below the shaft, here's another leaf here. Okay, now I think what we're going to go after next is our little bit of orange color here. We're going to start with a yellow. We're going to put the yellow light color down first. Oh dear, yuck. Ugh. No. There was too much blue on my brush. You see how green that was? We don't want green in there. We want yellow. So that's better. That's yellow. And maybe even a little hint here. All right, we're going to let that dry and then add some orange. I think these areas are too starkly white. So when the yellow dries, it's got to be dry, otherwise it's all going to blur together. We're going to add some more color in there. While we're waiting for this to dry, we can go back to our leaves and maybe add a little bit of another color, another shade of green in there, kind of just hinting at it, not being too insistent, just a little bit of the green. All right, here we go. Let's pretend there are more leaves. Why not? Okay, I don't know whether there are. I'm getting too many here or what, but all right, we're going to say there are a lot of leaves. Okay, now it's taking too long for this yellow to dry, so I'm going to blot it. All right, that'll dry it up. I think we need to get more color in our crocus, more shadows. And I also think that this is too stark, so I'm taking a lot of water, great deal of water, and not much pigment, not much paint. And I'm going to go over those areas. I think they're just too strong. Not too happy with that. Okay, now, what do we need to beef this up? We need to go back with this second coat of paint, a second layer of paint. And I think we could even use some blue in here. Yeah, let's dabble some blue in. All right, so let's go back to our purple, our violet, and go back to the blue. We're mixing here blue and violet, blue and violet. And this time, with the second layer, we're not going to cover over the entire section of the flower. We're just going to go sort of like that, halfway. Same thing here. Little streaks, not so much a complete cover of the shape. And see if we can't, you see how I'm kind of following the curve of the flower, but and more at the bottom, more at the base, maybe a curve here, a little more of curves here, definitely here, coming around inside that petal. All right, same thing over here, coming around, around. All right, let's get some more blue going here. It's coming along. Let's make this a little bluer, this a little bluer. See, it's still wet. Notice that it's still wet. And so the color is kind of merging together, blending a little bit because of the dampness of the color. And this is where painting is a lot of fun, because this is where you've established the flower and you've got your drawing and you know where you're going. So you're just kind of beginning to play with it a little bit, the play part, which is so interesting. All right, I think I'm going to add some quite strong purple blue down at the base of each flower, down here. Let's be really vivid. Down here, lots of, see the third coat? So dramatic to have that third coat on. Too stripy. If it's too stripy, quick while it's wet, take a little bit off. Dabble at it, that kind of softens that a little bit. We're getting awfully close to being done here. Maybe some more violet in here. Yeah, stronger violet in the middle, I think, to make it look like it's the interior of the flower. Yeah, that would really help. Okay, let's do more of that. That's the thing, if you find something that works, do more of it. Ooh, too much, oh my gosh. Ah, wow, too much. Boy, that's a really strong color. That's a new Winsor Newton blue, and it's a very, very vivid pigment. As we can see, it's just almost too much. Okay, let's go in more over here. Okay, gotta get more purple in. I may be adding too much. Could be that I'm getting carried away here. Let's dry a little bit of this up. I think this is almost too much. Well, I think we're getting ready to stop. I think just, now when you get to this stage, you kind of keep your eye on it, make sure it's all, yeah, I really like it. So, there we go. What we could do would be to add a very strong color in the background. That's what I did with this other one when I had more time. This is on a different kind of paper. It is very interesting, I think. This is a smooth paper, and the Arches is a rough paper. This is very smooth, and you can see, I think, much more texture in the Arches than you do on the smooth paper. So it depends on what kind of a look you have. And also here, I did not add the blue the way I did down there. So I think on this one, a part of the effect is from the very strong Winsor Newton blue. I would be nervous about putting this blue behind these flowers because I've used so much of this blue in the flower. I don't think it would show up very well. Now look, here you have to pay attention. This is still wet and it's drying with a fuzzy edge. So before it's totally dry, I'm taking the brush and just smoothing that out. You don't want that fuzzy brush look there with that. And that's why you have to kind of at the end really keep your eye on the painting and seeing what it's doing. I think this is a good place to stop with this one. If I'm going to add a background, I might add a yellow or a gold background. I think this is a good place to stop with the watercolor. So remember, wet colors run together. If this is wet and that's wet, they're side by side, it's going to bleed together. So you have to paint one petal, make sure that's dry before you paint the next petal. You're going to add more paint. You put on one layer, kind of let it dry, then you can enhance, you can go back and continue to add more colors on top of your original colors. If you add too many colors, it's going to be what they call muddy. Muddy is when you get too many colors from too many parts of your color wheel. We'll talk about muddy paint in another session. Now, four of you responded with wonderful images of your crocuses you drew based on last week. So we're going to show you the wonderful work by Tom Pilla, our Milton Cable TV man who's doing the editing. My sister, Julie Veronese, who lives in New York State, watched the show, and Loretta Britt, who lives down near Central Avenue. She did a beautiful yellow crocus. So don't forget, when you finish your artwork, you're going to send it on either to the TV station or send it to me at Neville, Neville5@gmail.com. And I'll incorporate it into the next show, give you some advice. So thank you for watching, and take care. And next week, we'll do another episode, probably with daffodils. So I hope you enjoyed this, and stay safe. Thank you.